Hello, my name is Devan Dushimimana. I'm from Kigali, Rwanda. I'm a British Rwanda scholar, 11th cohort. So I wanted to present to you my RISE project. So for my RISE project, I started a non-profit organization called Stand-Up for Mamas Initiative, or Stand-Up Initiative, as you can find it on Instagram. So the aim of the project was to promote domestic peace, fight against domestic violence, teach boys and women and men about positive masculinities, women empowerment, and engaging everyone in my community to champion fighting against domestic violence and gender-based violence. So you may ask why I'm so passionate about this topic while I'm a boy. So last year, 2021, in May, I was sitting for my IB exams and there was some sort of domestic violence that was happening at my home, and that kind of killed my mood and my preparation for the exams. And you can imagine the grades I got for my IBs until I decided that enough was enough and I need to stand up and talk about these issues and raise awareness. And that's why I approached a women organization called Rwanda Women Network, because I wanted to get more insights and more knowledge about these issues. I came to realize from the data that about 37.1% of women who are married at least have experienced domestic violence or gender-based violence in their lives, in their marriage life, and 5% of them has experienced sexual violence. And I was like, this data is too alarming, and it's so disappointing and shocking how no one talks about it. But you know what? This data is mostly in rural areas, because even though we say 37.1% have experienced some sort of domestic violence, this is data that is recorded. It might be 70, it might be 90, because in our Rwandan culture, we don't talk about this, and when there is some sort of domestic violence, they always blame a woman. That's why most of the time they don't speak up, and they will, claim that your marriage is failed and everyone is going to be blaming you. For my project involved 4 phases. The first phase was to meet a few women in the rural area, in the Bugesera district, in the eastern part of the country, and share some warm words and discuss about these issues, because it always shows them that there's someone out there who thinks about them. So the first phase was all about sharing love and spreading some warm words to them, inspiring them to be confident, inspiring them to stand up. And we, together with the chief of the village, we agreed that they're going to select a woman who is the leader of all the women in the village, so that he's going to follow up the lives of these women. And from my research there, I found out that financial dependence of these women on their husband also contributes to domestic violence, because that dependence on their husband, when they're asking them for money, when they're asking them for money for food, for school fees of their kids, gives them with no choice, because if they stand up and speak up, the husband is not going to give them money anytime. That's why they just stay there and be like, let me just admit and comply with this domestic violence. And for the second stage, I took a leap of faith and met a few men in the community, because they are the pioneers of this domestic violence. I was able to meet 4 men in the community. We discussed about these issues of domestic violence, and I came to realize also that culture and tradition, most of them think, because our culture says men are always superior, aggressive, which gives them those notions of being like, we can just order around our wives, whatever we do. And that gave me a thought that it wouldn't be very important if we think about men and women, because this is the old generation. That's why I organized workshops to meet a few young boys in public schools in Bugesera district and Bugesera district, to share about this knowledge of gender stereotypes, to share about respect for women, to share about positive masculinities, to share about championing the whole thing of fighting against domestic violence and gender-based violence, because these are the young generation, they're the future husbands. And if we can instill those ideas of fighting against domestic violence and respecting women and feeling that every person is equal irrespective of their gender, that's when we can really champion this issue of fighting against domestic violence. I was able to meet about 80 boys in high schools and discuss about these issues and share some material from these books, about, let's say, for Chimamanda, or other materials that involve gender studies and knowledge about domestic violence, because most of them, they didn't know. As I progressed working on my project, I came to realize that financial dependence of these women on their husband also contributes to domestic violence. That's why I thought talking to a few women and discuss about domestic violence and share some some love and encourage them to be confident, or talking to men about these issues of domestic violence, or organizing workshops for young boys and talk about positive masculinities, respect for women, and championing the fight against domestic violence wasn't enough, because I wouldn't be addressing the root cause of the issue, part of the root cause of the issue. That's why I organized Standup Marathon, which is a social media campaign to raise money to support these women financially. So the goal of this campaign was to raise $3,000 to be able to buy goats, which are going to be a source of income to these women once they give birth to offsprings, which can be sold. I told you how we agreed with the village chief that they're going to select a woman who is ahead of all of women, so that he's going to be following up the lives of these women in their house. So they're going to create a cooperative. This $3,000, that's like 3 million francs, is going to cater for 100 women, because one goat is $30. And in their cooperative, they're going to be saving money from their goats when they give birth, when they sell. And after like a year, they're going to divide that money, and that money can be used for themselves, household activities, buying food, buying clothes for their children, paying school fees for their children, insurance, without necessarily having to go to the husbands to ask for money. So far, I've raised $700 out of the goal of $1,000, and that $700 can buy goats for 24 women so far. And I would like to take a leap of faith and do this project on a larger scale. And if I become a Rise Global winner, I'll come back in my country and expand on this project and impact more women, which is different from just 1,100 women that can be impacted by $3,000. And I'll get more attention from the whole population of Rwanda, and start workshops for boys in schools, and influence the Ministry of Education to put gender studies and gender-based violence knowledge in the curriculum, because these are the future husbands, these are the men of the future. And if we can change that, because I told you this comes from our culture, and through education we can change it. And if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Thank you so much.